So 1/2. Do you know what that is as a decimal? I think I've told you.
0.5.
How do I write it?
0.5.
0.5. Okay. But how do I get that? Okay. Some of these you're going to know. Some of these you aren't going to know. So 2 times what equals 100? 50. So 1 times 50 would be 50. 50 hundredths is written like this. Correct? Do I need the last 0? No, I don't. Okay? So let's keep going. Now you can call this 1/4 or you can call it a quarter. All right? 4 times what equals 100? 25, like 4 quarters in a dollar. So 1 times 25, so that's going to be 25 hundredths. Everybody say it with me. 25 hundredths. How do I write that as a decimal? 0.25. Don't know why I wrote one line there. Okay? This one is 3/4 or 3/4. How much money is 3/4? 75. Okay? So 75 hundredths is going to be 0.75. Okay? So the next one is very similar. We still have 3/4. So we still have 75 hundredths. Okay? What do I do with the 1?
You put it to the front.
Yeah, instead of a 0, I'm writing a 1. Okay? So 1 3/4 is 1.75. All right? So let's keep going down to the next one. It's, okay, how many times does 25 go into 100?
4.
4. So 1 times 4. Okay, so how do I say this fraction? 4 hundredths. 4 hundredths. How do I write 4 hundredths?
0.04.
0.04. Okay, got the idea? We're going to start doing these and then I'll call on table groups. Okay? So do the next 2 and then I'm going to call on table groups to answer. So let's go. We've got 6 tables now. So let's go with table 6. What did you write right here?
32.
32 hundredths. And how do I write that as a decimal? 0.32. Okay? All right, so now the next one. How about table 4? That's right back there. Table 4. This is the same fraction, isn't it? 32 hundredths. What do I do with the 3? Yeah? The whole number of 3. Where does it go? At the beginning? Okay, let's keep going. So now we've got some different ones. We'll do the first one, and then you can finish the next 2. 5 times what equals 100? 20? 20. So if 5 times 20 is 100, how would I write 20 hundredths?
0.20.
And what 0 can I get rid of, boys and girls?
The one at the end.
The one at the end. Okay, I'm going to pause it while you do the next 2. Okay, how about table 2? What did you write here?
0.2.
Okay, so you did 5 times 20 was 100. And 2 times 20 is, and this is table 2. So how do you say this fraction?
40.
40 hundredths. How do I write 40 hundredths? 0.4. I would have another 0 on there, but do I need it? No. Okay. So table 1, what'd you get for this one?
3.
Okay, I need the fraction first, please.
140 hundredths.
Okay. Boy, that's a pretty big number. What kind of fraction is this, boys and girls? Improper. That means it's going to be a mixed number. Right? Okay, if I take out 1 whole, what will that be?
100.
100 hundredths. How many are left over?
40 hundredths.
40 hundredths. So how do I write 1 and 40 hundredths?
1.4.
Very good. Okay. So let's look at the next one. 20 times what equals 100?
5.
Times 5. So 1 times 5 is 5. How do I say this fraction? 5 hundredths. Okay? Table 3. How do I write 5 hundredths? As a decimal. 5 hundredths as a decimal. Very good. Okay, you try the next two. They're both going to be times 5. All right, table 4. So 20 times what equals 100?
5.
5. Table 4 is right here. Okay, so 9 times 5. No, table 4 is back there, sorry. Alicia? 9 times 5 is 45. Okay. How am I going to write 45 hundredths? 0.45. Okay. All right. What are we ready for? Table 5. Okay. So this is the exact same fraction. 45 hundredths. Okay. What do I do with the whole number of 4? Table 5. What do I do with the whole? What do you think I do with the whole number of 4?
I think you just put a 0 in front of it.
No, because that would just be 9/20.
No, you put a 4 in front of it.
Very good. Very good, Max.
Because
So it's a 4 in the ones place. Does that make sense? 4 whole is 4 ones. Okay, now you try these last 3 on your own. So let's go back over to table 6. What'd you get here?
14.
14 hundredths. How do I write that as a decimal?
0.14.
Good. 0.14. Okay, let's go with table 3. What'd you get here? 22 hundredths. How do I write that as a decimal? Good. Okay. And is this the same fraction, 11/50ths?
Yes.
So my 22 doesn't change. Okay. So table 4. Alasia, what do I do with the 3? Very good. Okay. So that's a little mini lesson on how to change a fraction to a decimal. Here's your first step. Okay. If you have to change this fraction to a decimal, you just write it equal to 100, and you can figure it out. 5 times 20, so 3 times 20, so 60 hundredths is 0.6. Okay? Let's keep going. This is a little different. We're going to rewrite each multiplication sentence as a decimal times a decimal. So we have to change our fractions to decimals. Okay? So how do I change a half to a decimal?
By
I already know what it is.
0.5.
0.5. So I will write 0.5 times 0.5 and solve it. So everybody write that down with your best handwriting. And remind me how I multiply decimals. Do I take it out and then put it in? Yeah? Yeah, I do. So 5 times 5 is what?
25.
25. Okay? So I know my answer is going to be 25 something. Now I've got 2 digits behind the decimal. So this is what my answer would look like. I got to have 2 behind the decimal. So, Josias, what do you think I should write for my answer?
0.25.
You got it. Very good. And this is a little review on multiplying decimals. It's a good time for a review. Okay, now this one's a little different. It's a whole number times a decimal. Okay? So I'll do it the same way. Take the decimal out and multiply. What's 2 times 5? 10. Put the decimal back in. How many digits will I need behind the decimal this time? 1. So how am I going to write the number 10 on these? 1.0. So what's my answer to 2 times a half?
1.
And that makes sense, doesn't it? 2 times a half is 1 whole. Okay, so now we got to combine 2 things. These both have to be decimals, so I'm going to change the fraction to a decimal. Who remembers how to do that? We just learned on the page before. Everybody write it down. Everybody write it down. Max, write this down. So 50 times what?
2.
Okay. So 1 times 2. So 200ths. So I've got 12 times 200ths. Same strategy. Take the decimal out. What's 12 times 2? 24. Put the decimal back in. And what do I have? 0.24. Okay. Oh, we already know what 1/50th is because we just did it. What was it? 200. So I'm going to put 0.5 times 200ths. And how many digits will I underline this time? 3. 1, 2, 3. And am I asking you to underline those? For right now, I am. Okay, now, how many behind the decimal this time? 3. So my answer is going to look like this. 3 behind the decimal. Okay? So what is 5 times 2? 10. Where do I write the 10? The last digit I write goes in the thousandths place. Okay? So then I fill in with zeros. And what can I erase? The last 0. So the answer is 100. Now, I want to show you what this would look like if it's written in a vertical way. Okay? This is what it would look like. Would I use the same strategy? Yes. I would underline my digits behind the decimal. Okay? And I would know that my answer is going to have 3 total numbers behind the decimal. And I would solve the problem 2 times 5 and fill in the answer. I would not try and multiply all these zeros and write a bunch of zeros down there and do turtle head. Okay? How you doing? Quentin?
So would it also work if you lined up the decimals?
No. That's only for addition and subtraction. So you don't want to line up decimals when you're multiplying decimals. You want to count. Remember, it's been a few weeks, maybe a week. I said, remember how 10 times 10 is 100? Well, tenths times tenths is hundredths. Okay? So it works the same way with decimals. You just go in the opposite direction. 3/5. Does anybody remember what that was as a fraction? Let's figure it out. 3/5 equal to blank 100ths. Everybody write it down. Get your pencil, write it down. Okay, so 5 times what equals 100?
20.
So 3 times 20?
6.
Okay. So it's going to be 60 hundredths. What number is that? 0.6, because we don't need the last 0, times 7 tenths. How many digits behind the decimal? 2. Oops, it didn't change back, did it? So my answer, boys and girls?
0.42.
0.42. So how do you feel about that? Changing a fraction to a decimal, here's your strategy. Okay? Put it equal to 100th. Blank hundredths. Now, the bottom, I think, is probably the opposite, is it?
Yeah.
We're going to do a fraction times a fraction. The first one's already done for us. I want you to go ahead and rewrite it. 6/10 times 7/10. Now, I want you to stop and think. How do I multiply fractions? Straight across. And somebody said, that line kind of reminds me, it's not switching like I want it to. That line reminds me that I multiply straight across. So 6 times 7
42.
and 10 times 10. Okay, now that's one way to do it. Now over here, I want you to write this word, 4. And I want you to rewrite the fraction. 42 hundredths I need to simplify. Divide it by 2. So what if I divide it by 2 ahead of time? Can I divide the 6 and the 10 by 2?
Yeah.
What's 6 divided by 2?
3.
What's 10 divided by 2? Okay. Now I'm going to multiply straight across. 3 times 7 and 10 times 5. I wonder if that's what I would have got if I would have simplified 42 100ths.
Yes.
What's 42 divided by 2?
21.
100 divided by 2. Okay? So, some of you would prefer to just simplify it, and that's fine. If you want to simplify ahead of time, this is a reminder of how to do it. Okay? So, let's look at the next one. Fraction times a fraction. So, how do I write 8/10 as a fraction?
8/10.
8 over 10 times 2 over 5. Okay, so that's going to give me what?
1650.
16/50ths, which I need to simplify. So what am I going to do? Divide by 2. What's 16 divided by 2?
8.
And 50 divided by 2?
25.
Okay, let's see if that's what we would have got if we would have simplified ahead of time. So I'm going to divide by 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So 8 times 1 is, and 5 times 5 is, okay? So we've got 1 left. 4/5 times 9/10. I have to change them both to fractions. How do I write 9/10? 9 over 10. 9 over 10. Okay. Okay, so 4 times 9, what is it?
36.
And 5 times 10? And I need to simplify.
By 3.
Nope, by 2. Okay. So if I do 36 divided by 2, sorry, I'm writing over, and 50 divided by 2, what do I get? 36 divided by 2?
12.
Nope.
22.
Oh my gosh, I put the answer. Look at that. 18 25ths. Yep. Let's see if that's what I would have got if I would have simplified ahead of time. So divide by 2. So 2 times 9 is 18. 5 times 5 is 25. Okay? Sound good? I know it's a lot, but I think you're smart. I think you can handle it. This is a review. So go ahead and look at the application problem. Okay? And I'm going to read it, and then we're going to talk about what we need to do. So it says the label on a 118,000 liter bottle of cough syrup recommends a dose of 10 milliliters for children ages 6 to 10 years old. This part doesn't matter. They're trying to trick you into using numbers that you don't need to use. Doesn't matter how old the kid is, because the question is, how many 10 milliliter doses are in the bottle? So here's what we've got. We've got 118,000 liters, and we've got 10 milliliters. Okay? And do you think we need to add, subtract, multiply, or divide? Divide, because it says how many 10 milliliter doses are in the bottle. So you'll start with the bottle. And you know that little cup of medicine or that you pour it into? Each of those is 5 milliliters. Look on there one of these days and check it out, okay? So it would be 2 of those, all right? So, I can't divide yet, though. Why can't I divide?
Because you need to turn them into decimal.
No, good try.
Simple numbers.
No, look at your labels.
Liters.
Liters, I'm going to either change it both to liters or both to milliliters. Okay? Both to milliliters because that's what we want our answer in. Okay? So on the anchor chart, it says when I change from liters to milliliters, what am I going to do?
Times 1,000.
Multiply or divide?
Multiply.
Multiply. So everybody write this down. Remember the capital L. Okay, so we just said we're going to multiply times 1,000. Now earlier today, this is a review, isn't it? Yeah. Earlier today, somebody said we're going to use the zero trick. And they're sort of right. But the zero trick means you're going to add zeros on the end or cross zeros off. So we're not actually using the zero trick because the decimal trick, we're going to count the zeros, but we'll use the decimal trick. So what does the decimal trick say, Serenity? Which way do I move the decimal when I multiply? Right? How many for 1,000?
3.
Okay, so let's get to moving. So my answer to this would be what?
118 milliliters.
So that's easier to work with, okay? And I love the number 10. So the next step, step 2 is, we said we were going to divide, right? So write that down. Now, a lot of kids are going to want to do this, which you would still get the same answer. But you don't need to go to that much trouble. What trick are we going to use?
Zero trick.
Nope.
No, decimal.
Decimal trick. So where's my decimal in 118?
At the end.
And which way do I move the decimal? When I divide left, and how many for 10?
1.
So the answer to how many doses are in that bottle of cough syrup?
Is 11.8 milliliters.
Nope, not milliliters, just doses. Okay, so that's a review. Keep going. 2 different ways you're going to see these questions written. You might see it written like this first problem. Make sure you're on problem 1. Okay, Jenny buys 2 pounds of pecans. If Jenny puts 2 pounds in each bag, how many bags can she make? Now, I think Jenny's probably selling these pecans, don't you? Like at a craft fair or something. All right, so this problem is going to be 2 pounds. I'm going to put 2 pounds in each bag, so how many bags will I have?
1.
1. Okay. So that looks like this. Both pounds will go in 1 bag. That's a number line underneath. The number line's just going to have 0 and 2. And it will be 2 pounds in each bag. So 1 bag is how many bags she can make on that one. Are we good?
Yep.
Okay. Right. Let's keep going. Jenny has 2 pounds of pecans. If she puts 1 pound in each bag, how many bags can she make? So 2 divided by 1 pound in each bag equals 2 bags. Okay? So write that problem down. We've got 2 pounds. How many pounds in each bag?
1.
So now I'm dividing 2 in half. What would that look like on a number line? Pretty simple. This would be a bag, and this would be a bag. Now it's going to get more fun. Okay, you ready for the next question? So we've done A, we've done B. Whoops. Now we're going to do C. Jenny buys 2 pounds of pecans. If she puts a ½ pound in each bag, how many bags can she make? So here's the problem. 2 divided by 1/2. Now when you do something like this, and you start dividing things in half, you've got to think about what's between 0 and 1. Between the 2 whole numbers. So I think personally, this is easier for me to understand on the number line. Okay? If I'm going to divide it in half, that means I have to divide between 0 and 1 in half, and I have to divide between 1 and 2 in half. Okay? So if I do that, it's right there. And if I divide it on the tape diagram, I'm not going to write it in all of them. But how many bags will she have?
4.
She'll totally have 4 bags. Okay, now here in a minute I'm going to show you the difference between multiplying fractions and dividing fractions, okay? But let's continue this. So now I'm ready for D. What if she has 2 pounds of pecans and she puts a 1/3 pound in each bag? So she has 2 pounds. Okay. She's dividing each pound into what?
1/3.
Thirds. Okay. So 1/3 is right. So if I divide this number line into thirds and go up and divide my tape diagram into thirds, how many bags will she have? 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? One more, then I'm going to show you how these kind of relate. So Jenny has 2 pounds of pecans. She puts a 1/4 pound in each bag. What's my problem going to be? 2 divided by what?
1/4.
1/4. Okay, so if this is the case, she starts out with the same number, doesn't she?
Yeah.
Okay, and we've got 1 whole and 2 whole. And then what am I dividing each whole into? 4ths. And the reason we do it on a tape diagram and a number line is because some kids have easier time with tape diagrams. Some kids can understand the number line better. Okay? We've done so many number lines in here, I almost feel like that's more familiar. But each one of these would be 1 bag. So how many bags would we have this time?
8.
8. Okay, now I want to stop on this for just a minute and show you the difference, okay? Are multiplication and division opposites?
Yes.
Okay, you don't have to write this. I just want you to watch, okay? So let's say I have 2 times a number greater than 2. Is my number getting larger? Yes? What if I have 2 times 1? My number stays the same. What if I have 2 times a number less than 1 whole? How do I do this problem? 2 times the numerator.
Equals.
Okay, so let me say this. 2 times a number less than 1 is getting smaller. And we talked about that before. So let's say I have 2 times 1/4. Okay? Well, let's change that to a third. So 2 times the numerator. Keep your denominator. And I notice my answers are just going to keep getting smaller. Okay? Division, didn't we just say it's the opposite of multiplication? So if it's the opposite, that means multiplying a number or dividing a number less than 1, my answer is not going to get smaller. What's it going to get? Larger. So I'm going to start with this. 2 divided by 2 equals what? 1. 2 divided by 1 equals 2. 2 divided by 1/2
Equals 1.
4.
4.
Okay? 2 divided by 1/3 equals, okay, so it's the opposite. Now, there's a way to remember this. You can remember that you multiply the 2 times the denominator, but there's another way to remember it. It's a little trick, and I'll teach that to you tomorrow. Okay? Let's go ahead and look at problem 2. We might not get it finished, but we'll get it started. This is the same thing, just another way to write it. Okay? So Jenny buys 2 pounds of pecans. This is half the number she needs to make a pie. So how many pounds will she need? If 2 is half of what she needs. What?
4.
You got it.
4.
All right, and we would do it the same way on the tape diagram. So maybe I should write this here so we can keep track, okay? So let's look at B. Jenny buys 2 pounds of pecans. If this is a third the number, not a half, but a third of the number she needs to make pecan pies, how many will she need?
6.
And 2 divided by 1/4 equals.
8.
So just 2 different ways to say the same kind of problem. They might say 1/3 is, or 2 is 1/3 of the number she needs. Or they might say 2 pounds divided by 1/3, or to put 1/3 in each bag. Okay? Tomorrow we'll practice the trick.